going on to all my movie fans out there, and welcome back to the channel. We are back discussing and reviewing the new sci-fi horror written and directed by Brandon Cronenberg and Infinity Pool. Now, I'm going to tell y'all something right now. This is one of the wildest movies I've seen in a very long time, but is that a good thing or a bad thing? We'll be discussing that and so much more in today's spoiler-free review, but before we get into it, let's start the conversation in the comments below. Let me know if this is a film that was circled on you all's calendar, and of course, once you've seen this movie, let's talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything between in the comments section. And of course, if you all enjoyed today's review, make sure you all are hitting that thumbs up button as well as sharing this video. With all that being said, let's talk about writer-director Brandon Cronenberg, who this marks the second feature film I've seen of his, one being this obviously and the other being Possessor. And I gotta say, man, I am pretty impressed with him as a writer as well as a director, but focusing a little bit on his direction here and particularly on this film, I found his direction to be very focused, and he knows exactly what he's trying to convey in his narrative. His direction is not only detailed but is so concise, and I find his perspective on the human body being used as a tool to be so fascinating. And again, this being the second film I've seen of his, I am becoming one of those people where if I see his name as a writer slash director, I got to check out his project. Like, I am very impressed with him as a director. But let's talk a little bit about the writing, a little bit about the story without giving too much away. As we meet James and his wife on vacation, as James is a writer looking for inspiration, and this is where they come across this new couple who take them outside of this resort, and this is where they find themselves in a very tragic accident, which leads into crime, death, lust, self-loathing, and destruction. And this film is tackling many different themes, but one of the themes that was very prominent to me and handled pretty well is how the film views the rich that's on this vacation. The way the rich is handled in this movie, they have no boundaries, they have no limits, and when it comes to money, it's being used as a shield to do whatever they want. And the film definitely has its own originality, but it reminded me of most recently nominated for Best Picture, Triangle of Sadness meets a little bit of Parasite meets The Strangers. But getting to this film and its uniqueness, this movie is extremely dark and twisted and really highlights the horror of privileged people with no regards of consequences to their actions. Now let's talk a little bit about these performances, y'all. This film is led by Alexander Skarsgård and Mia Goth. Let's talk about Mr. Alexander Skarsgård, who continues to show his range as an actor, from seeing him as this unmovable force of nature in last year's The Northman to seeing him in this. He just really allows himself to fully embrace this crazy, chaotic path that Brandon puts him on, and he definitely doesn't disappoint. But now we're going to talk about the star of this movie and the star of the last couple years, Mia Goth. We are just living in her world right now. She's just in this acting zone, and she's just clicking on all cylinders right now when it comes to acting, and she plays this sick and twisted character who is conniving and manipulative and fully understands her position of power and loves everything that she's doing, and she's just relishing in it. And I just thought that her performance was just so fantastic. There's many scenes in this film, but there's one in particular where she is looking for James, Alice's character, and you might have seen the trailer when she's like, "You little baby." She is fantastic in this film. Again, she's just on a hot streak right now, and she is just phenomenal in everything I've seen her in. She's just incredible. But let's get into what can I expect when seeing this film. And if you all are familiar with the Cronenberg's work, obviously David Cronenberg being Brandon's father, and if you've seen other Brandon's work, you kind of know what you're getting into. But just in case this is one of your first time seeing one of their films, let's talk about it. We know as Cronenberg fans, they love to play within sci-fi as well as horror, but they also have some erotic nature to the film. And I'm going to tell y'all right now, this film is very erotic. And when it comes to the erotic nature in this movie, there are a lot of sexual moments, including a very trippy orgy that's in this film. There is a lot of nudity on both the male and female side. And there are things like dog leashes. There are people getting pleasured left and right. And this definitely pushes the limits to rated R, and I think I read that this was at one point an NC-17 rating, and now after seeing this film, I can see why. But before we kind of get into the criticisms that I have for the film, I do want to mention a couple other things as far as the horror element. Now, this to me isn't your stereotypical horror film in the sense of like jump scares or being fearful, but instead the horror comes from the idea of what these people are doing and how they're doing these things that are disgusting and horrible crimes, and the fact that it does kind of lie into this reality we live in regards to money and privilege, and when it's in the wrong hands, that can be very horrific. So those are some of the main pros that I have for the film. Pivoting over to my criticisms. Now, I love when horror and sci-fi mix together, especially in the way that Brandon uses it, but I do wish that we would have explored more of these sci-fi ideas. And what I mean by that, without giving it away, there is this element of sci-fi of what they call physical doubling, and I just wanted to get more of the workings and how it was started, the science behind it, how it wasn't as exploited as I thought it would have been. And again, just selfishly, I just wanted to explore that a little bit more. Same thing with Possessor. He just has these really crazy, seriously insane ideas in the sci-fi elements, and I just wish they would have expanded on it more. So it's not really, when I think about the story, obviously they didn't give us all that because it didn't really help the narrative, but just selfishly, I just wish we could have explored that a little bit more. But getting more into some things that I didn't really enjoy about the film, in particularly, I mentioned how James is on vacation with his wife, and I felt there was a missed opportunity to not really include her more in the main narrative. One, because I think the actress is great, I like her a lot, but also I think she would have added this really interesting power dynamic, because we learned early on in the film that James isn't really as self-made as some of the other rich people on this vacation, and she's the one that provides him with the money, especially in his writing career. So to me, that would have been so interesting to kind of explore that a little bit more, but also her character would have been, to me, a much needed balance compared to these other characters who, at points in this film, these characters are irredeemable. They're delinquents, they're degenerates, and they're running around doing all these crazy things. And I will say, kind of in the second half of the film, it kind of gets repetitive, and it evens out by the time it gets to the third act. But I thought his wife would have been a much needed balance to kind of even out these characters that are just doing these crazy things, and having that one character that might have been completely different in her point of view on what they were doing. So those are my main pros, those are my main cons. Before I give you all my overall score, and if you all should give this a watch, if you stuck around to this point in the review, I really appreciate you. Just a reminder to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Overall, this is the kind of weird and sick filmmaking and storytelling that may not be for everyone, and I understand that, but I really enjoyed this film. At points, it was captivating, it was extremely disturbing, and at times disgusting, and it is bloody as hell, and I really just enjoyed the mixture of the horrific images mixed in with this wicked sci-fi concept. The performances were completely a compliment to Brandon's sensibilities as a writer and director, and I truly cannot wait to see what he does next, Alex does next, and again, Mia Goth, she's incredible. I'm going to give Infinity Pool a 4 out of 5 from my perspective. Remember, this is just my opinion. I am very aware that this film will not be for everyone, but this is the type of films that I really enjoy, and we are living in this really great horror space, and when it comes to this film, I do plan on talking a little bit more about the spoilers, kind of get into the ending explained video, so keep an eye out for that. I'm going to leave, once that video is available, I'm going to leave that link to that video in the description of this one, but I want to talk about this a little bit more, and I want to talk about it with you all. And again, going back to horror, we're living in a great time, man. Join me every Sunday. We go live talking about The Last of Us, doing a watch party and an after show. And then in the coming weeks, we have the M. Night film to look forward to. We got, Evil Dead coming out. We got so much to look forward to. But hey, I really enjoyed this film. I hope you all enjoyed my review. Again, just a reminder before you all leave to like, share, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. You all have been awesome. Hope you're staying safe. As you can see on the screen now, come and join the community. Check out my other reviews that I've done so far from this year. Check out my other breakdowns that I have on the channel, and we'll catch you all on the next video.